Today I've got a Caron yarn to review for you. This one is called Colorama Lacy. So let's go over the details. This is listed as a number 5 bulky yarn. It's 85% acrylic and 15% nylon, and there are 361 yards. I debated for quite a while about what to do with this yarn, and in the end I decided to aim for a small shawl. So I went with 96 ends with a 70-inch warp, and I chose a number 5 heddle. It looked nice in the warp. Unfortunately, I ran into some trouble when I was trying to thread the heddle because every so often the hook would get caught in the openness of the yarn and I'd have to reach in and pull it through by hand. Not the worst problem in the world, but it's worth mentioning. I tied the yarns directly onto the front warp stick since I was planning to do fringe on my wrap. I always use a super bulky yarn when I spread my warp, and I didn't have any handy, so I had to cut more, and I don't know what I was thinking because I cut these pieces way too short, but I was too stubborn to recut it. So I just went with it, and it was a little fiddly, but it all worked out in the end. Once I started weaving, I wanted to save yarn for hem stitching, so I measured roughly 3 widths of the weaving and set it aside to come back to later. I then proceeded to completely forget that I'd left yarn for hem stitching and just continued weaving. Not the first time I've done that, and I'm sure it won't be the last. One thing I should mention is that I realized pretty early on that there was no way I was going to be able to keep the yarns flat in the weft, because remember, it's basically a ribbon kind of shape. I was hoping that I could keep them flat because I thought it would make a nice basket weave kind of look, but it was obvious very early on that the yarn was too floppy, and I mean, it would have taken absolutely forever to untwist and flatten each strand. So I gave up very early on. Some of them are twisted. Most are flat, but quite a few are twisted, so be it. I figured, you know, that's just part of the yarn, and that's just what it does. Here I'm going to do a speed warp so that you can see the way that the yarns transition from one color to the next, because it's really pretty. At the end, I did a standard hem stitch. I bundled 4 strands in each section. I thought about doing 2 since this is considered a bulky yarn, but honestly, even though it's wide, it's very flat and fairly thin. So I just went with my standard 4 that I would normally do for like a worsted weight, and it worked really well. Here it is straight off the loom. You can see when you get up close that even though some of the strands are twisted, it still overall has an appearance of a basket weave, which I think is fun. And here's the finished piece. I made a calculation error, or I just wasn't thinking, or maybe I hadn't had enough caffeine, but there really isn't enough of this to do a wrap. It's really got more of like a school marmy kind of, you know, that sort of, I don't know. It's not nearly long enough, at least not for me, but you still get the idea of how it looks. I may make a bag out of it at some point, but I got to set this aside for now and move on to other yarns. I can't really say that this is my favorite thing I've ever made, so I can't really put my finger on what I don't love about how this feels. It's not scratchy, and it's not really uncomfortable. It's just not cozy. It feels ever so slightly kind of synthetic-y, which obviously I realize it isn't synthetic yarn, but some feel better than others. It's fine. It's not amazing, and it's not terrible. Sorry, I know that's vague, but I don't know exactly how else to describe it. It's fine. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm going to quickly move on to another one because I've taken a longer break than I meant to, and it's time to get back to some videos. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know. And as usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.